Hey, what's up, guys? Normally at this channel, we like to make fun of this guy named Warner Smith. He makes a lot of dumb videos where he pretends to use logic to analyze videos from, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, sometimes more recent. But in this video, I wanted to take this a little more seriously to see where Warren makes errors in logic. So let's get into it.
We have Don Lemon sit down with Bill Maher trying to defend DEI,
I'm talking to you about what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually is.
claiming that we don't have a full understanding of this, and he's going to educate us.
I don't think those people understand what DEI is. DEI is not the hiring of black people who are not qualified or
It can
people
be.
who are. No. That's not what it's about.
Enlighten us, Don Lemon. What is the real definition?
The people who are disagreeing about it, they need to understand exactly what it is. I think people who disagree may not understand what it is.
What is equity? What's the difference between equity and equality? Equality is equal opportunity. Equity is equality of outcome, and the only way to achieve that specific outcome is to impose it upon the process itself. That is the evidence.
But I think
That is the evidence of what? Your definition of equity is not everyone's definition of equity. Your definition is, the straw man version that right-wingers like to complain about. But equity can just mean like, hey, look, we've noticed that as a result of historical racism, black and brown people and other races have been left out of certain industries, certain professions, and we want to give resources to those groups so that they can have a better chance of, getting a foothold into those professions. What's so bad about that?
I think you have to understand what the real definition is and that people have sort of co-opted it. And I think if you believe, as in the definition that the MAGA Trump administration, that they're saying what DEI is, that is a racist definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
What is it? What is it?
They're saying that this is because they're hiring people, women, people of color, minorities who are not qualified. And that's not what is
So
happening.
you're saying no person of color or woman who was not qualified was ever hired for any job?
I'm sorry. Well, no. I'm not saying that.
Oh,
But
it
so
seems like that would
be
have to
saying
be the
that-
logical conclusion.
But that would be
to
saying
He's going to do this.
No, that's not what he's saying. Look, anybody of any race or gender can be hired and be unqualified. That doesn't prove that that's a function of DEI programs, right? Because there are white men who are unqualified and still get hired.
The same thing he did with Elon Musk and claim that you don't have any evidence.
It can have that result.
But anything can be, yes, of course it could have that result, but there's no evidence that it does have that result. And
I
so
don't know about that.
Okay, so then what is your evidence? There's no evidence that there is that result.
But the logic is the evidence.
You point to medicine.
There's the logic as the evidence thing again. What does that mean? Look, in the real world, you need evidence to prove your claims. I think it's really funny that, whenever he's analyzing a video between, a left winger and a right winger, and the left winger will make some claim, like, I don't know, systemic racism exists, and Warren insists that he or she provide examples. But why can't they just say, oh, the logic is the evidence? Why is it only applicable in arguments that you like?
And you claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk. Do you really believe this to be true? And what evidence do you have to support it?
If we lower the standards for doctors, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said.
For simplicity's sake, we have 100 applicants. We have the standards in place. They go through the standards. We now have the end result. You're coming in and saying, I don't like that end result through the lens of group identity. The only way to do that is either to lower the standard
He's thinking really
or
hard.
to accept people that otherwise would not have met that standard.
But diversity, equity, and inclusion is about making sure.
Right, but you have to give us proof that standards are being lowered, right? Because that's the crux of the argument. If standards are being lowered to allow black and brown people to become doctors at higher rates than they should be, then that's a problem. But you have to actually give us the evidence for that. Bill Maher hasn't done it. Elon Musk hasn't done it, and you haven't done it. Just give us the evidence, man. That's how argumentation works. If you make a claim, you gotta back it up. You can't just say A equals A, logic, and I'm done. That's not how it works.
That the pool of candidates is larger.
That's not equity, though. That's equality of opportunity, making sure.
Right, but that's what those programs do. So they're not doing anything that you disagree with then, right? Like, these programs are designed to, basically market towards underserved communities.
As many people have the opportunity to be a Navy SEAL. Anyone can go try and be a Navy SEAL. Sam Cedar does the same thing, claiming that DEI is simply just posting flyers for the job that you're looking to hire for in underprivileged neighborhoods. It's like, no, that's advertising.
DEIA.
But is it wrong?
For
Advertising.
DEIA forces them as an agency to say, if you have a job opening, you must do your best efforts to make sure that every
I like that.
part
I love
of
me a
society.
buzzword. You shouldn't be pressured to hire someone based on skin color.
No, not to hire someone on skin color, but put up notice about that the job exists. Make sure that you put it in different communities so that you have as wide an application pool as possible.
And that's not equity. That's equality. Equality is equal opportunity, expanding, making sure that as many people as possible know about the opportunity.
Again, but that's what those programs are doing. And what is wrong with that? Like, you're living in a fantasy land if you think that if hospitals or, clinics are hiring black people who just walked off the street. That's not happening.
That's not equity. That's not DEI.
The biggest recipient of DEI is white women, and also veterans, because of veterans, and also people who are disabled people. It's just about making sure that disabled people have a ramp somewhere at work.
The DEI is not about making sure there's a ramp for someone who's disabled.
Yeah, but yeah, it is. That's part of it, right? DEIA, right? We always forget about the accessibility, but that's what it is, man. It's just about helping people who've been marginalized by society, right? It's not about like, oh, we have to hire 20% black people for this job, right? Like, racial quotas don't exist anymore. That's not a thing.
Completely a separate topic.
So that they get to work.
Understood, but equity is the word, not equality. That it was a change that people noticed. Equality was everybody gets an equal shot. Equity is...
The problem is, everybody doesn't get an equal shot, right? We pretend as though, in this country, in the United States, there is equality of opportunity. That's not a real thing, right? Unless you impose it, right? Because, when you have a stratified society where, the top 1% own whatever it is, 40% of wealth, do you think the kids in the top 1% have the same opportunity as those in the bottom 10%? No. And so what these programs are designed to do is to help equalize that a little bit, right? It's not perfect, but that's what these programs are doing.
Is like, no, it's basically quotas. Equity is
It's quotas. I don't think that America's never been about everybody getting an equal shot.
That's what we are striving to do, though. That's equality.
But that's what
But how are we striving to do that unless you have programs that make equality of opportunity at least more realistic than it is in just a totally free market system?
the idea, the old school liberal idea was we need to strive for equality. That changed to equity. This is what some people are against, And reasonable people can disagree on it without being racist.
Then he makes this remarkable argument that because there are examples of non-DEI hires failing or being sued, that is an argument for DEI.
They talk about the airplanes in the airplane industry. Most of the pilots and the people who are white. Most of the doctors in the country where they say DEI, we don't want it, we hate. Most of the doctors are white. And so all of those malpractice suits are against mostly white doctors. Most of the planes that fall out of the sky are,
of course,
Bill Maher's just kind of like, there's going to always be a discrepancy.
Of course.
Piloted by white pilots.
Yes.
And so then what is your issue then with diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I don't have one.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm talking about the
okay.
understood you.
So I disagree with Bill here. I think you should point out the flaws, the logical flaws in DEI and equity. It leads to viewing people through the lens of their group identity.
What is your issue then if there is no evidence that by hiring a bigger pool of people?
No, I think they think I think there is evidence. There are places. Okay, I will give you an example. Our fire chief was a lesbian, and I said on my show, do I think a lesbian can do that job? Of course I do. But I think what they did was said, okay, we want to hire a lesbian first, so we're going to hire the best person among lesbians, as opposed to we're going to hire the best person.
We will never.
Did they say that, or is Bill Maher just completely making that up? I don't know. But I need to see the receipts. I need to see the evidence, right? Not just the logic.
Lesbian, as opposed to we're going to hire the best person.
We will never actually have proof that she was hired because they wanted a lesbian. It's like we can theorize that. We can use common sense. And that's what makes this challenging. But that's why I think the best response is to say, well, the logic is the evidence, because logically it is unavoidable.
I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but to pretend that that kind of thing hasn't been happening in this country.
I don't disagree with you on that.
It's disingenuous.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I shouldn't say I don't disagree with you. I understand what you're saying. But that one example.
So let's say the Secret Service at the Trump assassination, we don't have evidence that that lady who couldn't holster her weapon was hired because she was a woman rather than it was just incompetence or stupidity. So Don Lemon would not accept that as evidence, though that is what this process can lead to.
It's what it can lead to, but I'm not actually going to marshal any evidence that it directly is the cause of that woman being hired by the Secret Service. This is all just bullshit.
Opposed to the millions of examples of people who are not diverse, as they say, who have been hired and unqualified, I think that is...
Yes. The question is, why do you want to expand the applicant pool further than what you already have? Why is this end result not satisfactory?
So if you are...
I mean, think about it. If you have, a profession or an industry that, let's just say, is 100% white, even though the country has lots of other identities, racial identities, why wouldn't you be dissatisfied with that result? Wouldn't you think that's kind of weird? Wouldn't you think that's maybe a result of racism, or maybe even systemic racism? Why wouldn't you want to extend the opportunity, right, to get an education, right, to get exposure, to experience within a profession, and give those opportunities to Black and brown and Asian kids? Why is that like so horrific? Why would you want to have a society in which only one race is represented in a profession or an industry? That seems like something went wrong there. And I'm a little confused as to why Warren thinks it's bad to, market these professions, these jobs, these industries to underrepresented people. Even though he said earlier in the video that doing so is just equality. So why is he against it now?
Or fishing, rather than fishing in a swimming pool, maybe you're in a pond. Rather than fishing in a pond, you're in a lake. Or maybe you're in a lake instead of a river. Or in a river, you're in the ocean. So you're just trying to find different people.
Let's look at the motivation. Well, because we want people of these specific groups that are underrepresented in the outcome. So it is being motivated by viewing people through the lens of their group identity still.
Yeah, how else do you say, hey, let's try to get more, races or genders into this field, because we also want them to have the opportunity, right? Equality of opportunity to break into this field. Why are we denying the opportunity for other types of people to engage in this type of work or in this aspect of society, right? There's so much wasted potential by doing that. And it entrenches this idea that one race or one, group identity gets to have all of that thing, right? Or have all the power. Why do we want to live in a society like that?
Biggest recipient of DEI is white women.
It leads to the assumption that your gender, your race, has something to do with your value. Merit determines your value.
Right, but the problem is we don't know if those different group identities have merit if we're never giving them the opportunity in the first place. You said giving opportunity to people is fine, but then you're acting as though, oh, well, if we get such and such result as a result of free market principles or whatever, then that's just the way things should be, and that's who has the merit. And anyone who does not succeed or enter that field does not have merit. But that's just not the case. When we see DEI programs implemented, we find out that, oh yeah, Black people can do such and such, or Mexicans can do this thing, instead of just shutting them out of completely. So I'm not entirely sure what Warren's argument is against providing people with opportunity, which he kind of said was cool in the first place, but is not what DEI actually is, supposedly. But anyway, another mostly incoherent video from our friend, what's his name? Warner Smith. Thank you guys for watching. Love you guys. Bye-bye.